The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. A gentle breeze rustled through the leaves, carrying the scent of freshly cut grass. Children's laughter echoed through the park as they chased fireflies in the gathering dusk. It was a day like any other, peaceful, unremarkable, the calm before the storm. I was walking home from the bakery, a warm loaf of sourdough tucked under my arm, its comforting aroma wafting up to my nose. The streets were unusually quiet, the kind of stillness that makes you feel like you're the only person left in the world. When the sky began to shimmer, it started subtly, like heat rising from asphalt, a mirage that made me blink and rub my eyes, then intensified, twisting the familiar constellations into grotesque shapes. I stopped, my breath catching in my throat, as if the air had suddenly thickened, a prickle of unease crawling down my spine. This was no natural phenomenon. The sky seemed to be alive, pulsating with an eerie energy that made my skin crawl. Suddenly, a blinding light pierced the twilight, so bright it felt like it was burning through my retinas. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd that had gathered, their faces illuminated by the unnatural glow, drawn together by the strange spectacle unfolding above. The air crackled with static, raising goosebumps on my arms. It felt like the atmosphere was charged with electricity, each hair on my body standing on end. Fear, primal and sharp, cut through the idyllic facade of the evening, replacing the sweet scent of baking bread with the metallic tang of dread. It was as if the world had shifted, revealing a darker, more sinister layer beneath. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing the growing sense of impending doom. Something was coming, something beyond our understanding, something that defied the very laws of nature. As the light intensified, I felt an overwhelming urge to run, to hide, to seek shelter from whatever cosmic horror was about to be unleashed. My instincts screamed at me to flee, but my body refused to obey. But my feet felt rooted to the spot, as if the ground itself was holding me in place. My gaze locked on the swirling vortex of light above. It was mesmerizing, terrifying, and beautiful all at once. I couldn't look away, even as the world around me seemed to dissolve into chaos. Then they began to emerge. Massive angular shapes descended from the swirling rift in the sky. Ships, if you could call them that, their hulls shimmering like oil slicks, devoid of any familiar markings or lights. Panic erupted in the streets. People screamed, their voices raw with terror, as they scattered in a futile attempt to escape the inevitable. Cars screeched, horns blared, creating a cacophony of desperation that echoed through the once peaceful neighborhood. I stood frozen, the forgotten loaf of bread tumbling from my grasp. My eyes followed one particular ship, larger than the others, its underbelly aglow with an eerie, pulsating light. It hovered over the city, casting a long, chilling shadow that swallowed everything in its path. A wave of nausea washed over me, and I knew with a sickening certainty that this was not a friendly visit. This was an invasion. Militaries around the world mobilized, but their weapons were pitiful against the advanced technology of the invaders. The might of human armies, once a symbol of power and protection, now seemed laughably inadequate. The invaders' technology was beyond anything we had ever seen, rendering our most advanced weaponry useless. Tanks were reduced to molten slag, their once formidable armor melting away like butter under a blowtorch. The sight of these mechanical behemoths, now nothing more than smoldering wrecks, was a stark reminder of our helplessness. Fighter jets fell from the sky like broken birds, their sleek forms plummeting earthward in a trail of smoke and fire. Pilots who had once soared with confidence now faced a grim and fiery end. Every act of defiance was met with swift and brutal retribution. The invaders responded with a cold efficiency, crushing any resistance with an almost mechanical precision. It was as if they were toying with us, demonstrating their superiority at every turn. I watched in horror as soldiers, brave men and women who had sworn to protect us, marched into battle with grim determination. Their faces, etched with resolve, betrayed no fear, but I could see the uncertainty in their eyes. They were cut down like wheat before a scythe, their lives snuffed out in an instant. The battlefield became a graveyard, littered with the bodies of those who had dared to stand against the invaders. Their courage meant nothing in the face of such overwhelming power. The invaders' technology was not just advanced, it was otherworldly, defying all our understanding of physics and engineering. Hope, once a flickering candle in the face of the overwhelming darkness, sputtered and died. The light of resistance was extinguished, leaving us in a void of despair. The streets ran red with blood, a macabre testament to the futility of our resistance. The ground was soaked with the lifeblood of countless fallen heroes, their sacrifices seemingly in vain. The aftermath of each battle was a grim reminder of our helplessness. Scenes of devastation and ruin were all that remained, a stark contrast to the vibrant life that once filled these places. The air was thick with the stench of death, the acrid smoke from burning buildings stinging my eyes and throat. It was a suffocating reminder of our dire situation. The once bustling cities were now ghost towns, their streets filled with the echoes of a past life. The acrid smoke from burning buildings stinging my eyes and throat, a constant reminder of the destruction that had befallen us. But even amidst the carnage, I knew that the true horror was yet to come. The invaders had not yet revealed their ultimate plan, and the uncertainty gnawed at my soul. This wasn't just about conquest. The invaders were not content with mere domination. They had a deeper, more sinister purpose. This wasn't about wiping us out. If they had wanted to, they could have eradicated us in an instant. No, their intentions were far more insidious. This was about something far more sinister. This was about enslavement. The invaders sought to break our spirit, to bend us to their will, and to make us subservient to their every command. The true horror was not in the destruction they wrought, but in the chains they intended to place upon us. Those who survived the initial onslaught were rounded up, herded like cattle into massive transport ships. The air was thick with the smell of fear and desperation, a palpable tension that seemed to cling to the very fabric of the atmosphere. The once bustling streets, now filled with the echoes of hurried footsteps and the distant cries of the captured, painted a grim picture of our new reality. Their faces were etched with a mixture of fear, despair, and a strange, vacant resignation. It was as if the very essence of hope had been drained from their souls, leaving behind hollow shells of what they once were. The haunting expressions told stories of loss, of dreams shattered and futures stolen. They had looked into the abyss, and the abyss had looked back. The darkness they stared into was not just the physical void, but a metaphorical chasm that represented the end of everything they had known. It was a darkness that consumed not just light, but hope and humanity itself. I saw families torn apart, their bonds severed in the most brutal of ways. The cries of parents reaching out for their children and the desperate screams of children being pulled away created a symphony of sorrow that echoed through the air. Children ripped from their parents' arms, their innocent eyes wide with terror and confusion. The sight of tiny hands reaching out, grasping at the empty air where their parents once were, was a heart-wrenching reminder of the cruelty we faced. Their cries echoing through the shattered remnants of our world, a haunting melody that underscored the devastation around us. The ruins of our cities stood as silent witnesses to the horrors that had unfolded, their once proud structures now reduced to rubble and ash. The aliens showed no mercy, no compassion. Their cold, unfeeling eyes scanned the crowds with a detached indifference, as if we were nothing more than insects to be crushed underfoot. Their advanced technology and superior strength made resistance futile. We were nothing more than a resource to them, our lives worth less than the dirt beneath their feet. To them, we were commodities, stripped of our humanity and reduced to mere numbers in their grand scheme. Our lives worth less than the dirt beneath their feet. The disdain in their gaze was unmistakable, a chilling reminder of our new place in the universe. I managed to evade capture for a while, hiding in the ruins of a bombed-out apartment building. The shadows became my allies, the crumbling walls my sanctuary. Every creak and groan of the decaying structure sent shivers down my spine, a constant reminder of the fragility of my refuge, hiding in the ruins of a bombed-out apartment building. The once vibrant home now stood as a hollow shell, its walls scarred by the ravages of war. The memories of laughter and life that once filled its rooms were now replaced by an eerie silence. But I knew it was only a matter of time. The relentless search parties grew closer with each passing day, their footsteps echoing ominously through the deserted streets. The sense of impending doom was inescapable. The city was crawling with those creatures, their presence a constant threat. They patrolled the streets with an eerie precision, their movements calculated and efficient. There was no place to hide that they wouldn't eventually find. Their cold, calculating eyes missing nothing. Every shadow, every flicker of movement was scrutinized with an intensity that left no room for error. Their gaze was like a spotlight, exposing even the smallest hint of life. The silence was the worst part. It was a silence that spoke volumes, a deafening quiet that amplified the sense of loss and desolation. The absence of familiar sounds created a void that was almost unbearable. Gone were the sounds of laughter, of music, of life. The places that once echoed with joy and celebration now stood empty and lifeless, their silence a stark contrast to the vibrant memories they once held. Of music, of life. The streets that once bustled with activity were now deserted. The homes that once sheltered families now stood empty. The lifeless environment was a constant reminder of what we had lost. In their place was an oppressive stillness, a heavy, suffocating quiet that seemed to press down on everything. It was a stillness that carried the weight of countless sorrows and unspoken fears, broken only by the mournful creak of the wind whistling through the shattered windows and the distant hum of the alien ships. The wind's eerie song was a constant companion, a reminder of the world that had been and the desolation that now reigned. Their presence was a constant reminder of our new reality, a haunting sound that underscored the silence and the loss. The ships hovered like dark omens, their hum a dirge for the world we once knew. They came for our planet's resources, its metals, its minerals, its very lifeblood. Massive machines, cold and heartless, descended upon the Earth like monstrous insects, tearing into its flesh, ripping out its veins of ore and precious stones. Forests, once teeming with life, were reduced to barren wastelands. Mountains, which had stood for millennia, were leveled, their remains carted away in massive cargo ships. The very air grew thick with dust and the stench of industrial waste. The oceans, once teeming with life, were choked with pollution, their once vibrant coral reefs bleached and lifeless. The creatures of the deep, driven from their homes, washed ashore, their bodies rotting under an uncaring sky. The Earth, once a vibrant paradise, was being systematically stripped bare, its beauty defiled, its resources plundered. And we, its former caretakers, were forced to watch, our hearts breaking with each passing day. They took me, eventually. I was dragged from my hiding place, kicking and screaming, but my resistance was met with a chilling indifference. I was thrown into a cage, a cramped metal box reeking of sweat and fear. Around me, others huddled together, their eyes glazed over with a chilling emptiness. They had been broken, their spirits crushed under the weight of our collective despair. The transport ship was a nightmare. The air was thick with the stench of unwashed bodies and the taste of fear. We were packed in like animals, our bodies pressed together, our movements restricted. Where were they taking us? What awaited us at the end of this journey? These questions, whispered in hushed tones, were a constant refrain in the darkness. But there were no answers, only the gnawing certainty that our future was bleak, our fate sealed. They took us to a processing facility, a cold, sterile place of metal and concrete, where the air hummed with the energy of 1,000 unseen machines. We were stripped, scanned, and branded like cattle. Our individuality, our humanity, stripped away with each degrading procedure. I saw a flicker of defiance in the eyes of a young man, his jaw set in determination as he refused to bow his head. But his rebellion was short-lived. The guards, their faces expressionless, moved with chilling efficiency, their weapons discharging with a sickening crackle. His lifeless eyes stared up at the uncaring ceiling, a stark reminder of the futility of resistance. Hope, that fragile ember that had flickered within us, threatened to be extinguished completely. We were nothing more than slaves now, our lives forfeit, our futures predetermined. We belonged to them, body and soul. Days bled into weeks, weeks into months. I lost track of time, the monotony of our existence a cruel form of torture. We toiled in the mines, our bodies breaking under the strain, our lungs choked with dust. The food was meager, barely enough to sustain us. Sleep was a luxury, granted only to those who had exhausted themselves beyond the point of collapse. But even in this abyss of despair, a spark of humanity remained. We clung to each other, sharing stories of our past, whispering dreams of a future that seemed more and more impossible with each passing day. Then, one day, the whispers started. Rumors of a rebellion, of a plan to overthrow our captors. Hope, once a distant memory, began to flicker anew. But this time it was different. This time it was tinged with a cold, steely determination. We had nothing left to lose. The rebellion, when it came, was swift and brutal. We were outmatched, outgunned. But we fought with the fury of the damned. We fought for our lives, for our freedom, for our planet. But it was a losing battle. For every alien we struck down, 10 more seemed to take their place. Our victory, fleeting and Pyrrhic, was crushed under the weight of their superior numbers and technology. The last thing I saw, before the darkness claimed me, was the cold, indifferent gaze of the alien overseer. There was no triumph in his eyes, no satisfaction, only a chilling emptiness. They won. They stripped our planet bare, leaving behind a silent, lifeless husk. And as their ships rose from the ruined surface, disappearing into the vast emptiness of space, a single chilling thought echoed through the void. We are not alone. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment below, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification bell for more terrifying tales.